This is Rally Round the Cannon, some thoughts on Princeton's history by somebody who should know better. I've always had a healthy regard for the resource-constrained underdog, very likely the result of a lifetime rooting for the White Sox, and my personal icon, Bill Veeck. Similar, for those not conversant in baseball, to rooting for Anne Hathaway against Meryl Streep in The Devil Wore Prada. Reading the lifelong correspondence of John McClain, Jr. of the class of 1816, Princeton's 10th president, brings this feeling to the surface almost immediately. Here's a guy whose entire 86-year life, literally, he was born in Princeton to the college's chemistry professor. His entire life and significant intellect were bent to one purpose: the advancement of the College of New Jersey. And what does he get? Trustee intrigue and the confusing competition of the seminary, the dissolution of the entire country and the rending of his student body in the Civil War, and the incessant financial instability of the entire operation. He saves the place through his effort to revive the faculty, then watches Nassau Hall burn in 1855. He finally lives to see his successor revive the college, even writes the definitive history of its first century, but dies 10 years short of the great sesquicentennial of 1896. It's very like Moses being shown the promised land while being told he can't get in. You get the uncomfortable sense that God is methodically making fun of both of them. To this day, there are 4 Princeton presidents who are the acknowledged guiding beacons of its path through history: Witherspoon, McCosh, Wilson, and Goheen. I certainly concur, but in doing so, feel the special need to light a candle to Veeck and Moses and McClain, the guys who toil ceaselessly in the vineyard, then are shuffled off before the wine is drinkable. So it warms my heart to see the archive's recent acquisition of a large chunk of McClain's correspondence from across the 19th century, with his spectrum of admirers, acquaintances, and even, God help us, Princeton parents. Over 200 pieces in all. The papers casually appeared on the market last year, and the Princetoniana Committee's marauding P-Bay collectors, in this case reconfederated as the Gang of 12, tippy-toed back into the murk of market acquisitions and emerged with the literary prize from a library. So, here's a locomotive for Frank Sloat, Bob Rogers, Donald Farron, Paul Sittenfeld, Jan Kubik, Stephen Brown, P-Bay Capo, Dave Cleaves, Sev Anishkovich, Cynthia Penny, Scott Clemens, and Jonathan Sapin for their acquisitive accomplishments in tribute to McClain. One of the best aspects of the new McClain Papers collection, thanks in part to a grant from the New Jersey Historical Commission, is that every jot and tittle of the wildly diverse material is now available online to all you good folks in Dubuque who don't get to visit Olden Street very often. Get out your bifocals and your laptop and have a blast with them. Among the dozens of letters, many of the most intriguing are those from McClain himself, which number 25 in total. There's an 1828 piece chastising local ministers on behalf of the Synod. McClain had a divinity degree from the seminary himself. There's an ornate 1849 missive on heavy officialish paper protesting the political ouster of the Princeton postmaster in a rigged election. Following McClain's ascendance to the college presidency, there's an 1858 plea with the president of the Free Academy, later to be CCNY, to award an honorary doctorate to a Princeton trustee. And, of course, there's the eternal battle with the students. In his vice presidential enforcer guise, we have from 1832, "My dear sir, I am sorry to inform you that your son, Mr. William J. Buchanan, has been directed by the faculty of our college to return home for an offense against the good order of the college. He was part of a protest against the prohibition of students at the new billiard hall in town." And from 1849, My dear sir, when I saw you last, I understood you to say that you did not wish your son to return home until next Saturday or the Saturday following. He has been absent from the college for 2 days, and I hope he is at home, but not knowing this to be the case, I have thought it best to inform you that he was at recitation on Saturday, and that he has not attended any college exercise since that time. With the best wishes for your son's welfare. By 1858, as president, he had more magisterial responsibilities, such as informing a prospective parent of projected costs for a year at Princeton, about $230. Gotta keep the oil lamps lit. The huge incoming correspondence and attendant materials are endlessly fascinating, a dissertation waiting to happen. Our eagle-eyed historians at the archives, though, have pointed out one of the most poignant. The inventory of Maclean's father's estate at his death in 1814 lists as the professor's most valuable single items 2 slaves. This was in Princeton, while young Maclean was a college student. A provocative inheritance, to say the least. He would eventually become, as he grew preeminent in the local community over the next 72 years, a founder and principal supporter of the Black Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church, whose pastor from 1880, a Lincoln University graduate, was the father of Paul Robeson. When those suspicious of change advise us to proceed slowly, if at all, we might do well to consider Maclean. In this spirit, the true spirit of Bill Veeck, by the way, who hired Larry Doby to play for the Cleveland Indians in 1947, in this spirit, we need to recount the sheer love in which Maclean was held. In the seniors' autograph books of the late 19th century, President McCosh's inscription was often relegated to the second page. The first was held aside in the hope of a kind word from emeritus icon Maclean. Alexander Leach, in his Great Princeton Companion, recounts one reason why. Maclean was not without a sense of humor. One night, 2 donkeys from a nearby farm were found on the top floor of Nassau Hall. A student on hand at the discovery asked Maclean, with an innocent air, how he thought they had got there. "Through their great anxiety," Maclean replied, "to visit some of their brethren." Speaking of which, yours in virtual orange and black, this is Greg Lang of the great class of 1970. Rally Round the Cannon is a podcast from the Princeton Alumni Weekly online.